I don't need a babysitter, Uncle.
Then call me a chaperone.
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and today I want to talk to you about Gears of War 4, specifically about the prologue and the opening act, actually, because to be brutally honest, they both do the rest of the game a disservice. Minor spoilers, obviously, for the prologue and the opening act of Gears of War 4.
Cease and desist immediately.
Now, first things first, Gears of War 4 is good, like really surprisingly good. It's about as quintessentially a Gears of War game as it's possible for a Gears of War game to get, which is good news, as it's the first one developed from start to finish by the Coalition, so strong start from them. Brownie points all round. There's also the fact you don't really see AAA games with massive sprawling campaigns like this being made much at the moment, unless they're open world. To be honest, it's kind of refreshing to go back to that style of single player, not least because I really didn't think I was ready for another Gears of War. See, like a lot of people, by the time the original trilogy was over, I think I was a bit fatigued by Gears of War. A lot of shooters were doing the same thing at that time, so the market felt crowded, and by the time Gears of War Judgment arrived, I was kind of done. To be honest, I felt like I'd fought my way across quite enough grey levels with waist-high walls, thank you very much. So to find myself really enjoying Gears of War 4 was both a surprise and a delight. Setting the campaign years after the events of Gears of War 3 and introducing new protagonists has made it feel like a fresh start. Something backed up by the fact you're shooting lots of new things as well as using new people to shoot those things with. The introduction of new enemy types has really shaken things up. Okay, well, it's shaken things up to a point. Your new enemies are called the Swarm, and the drones, for example, they're the most numerous adversaries by far, are very similar to the average Locust indeed. The Juvies, on the other hand, while moving and looking a lot like the wretches from the original trilogy, actually pose a considerable threat throughout. Namely because it inevitably spawns loads of them and they're bloody hard to shoot. Pouncers also get an honourable mention because they take ages to die and it's not hard to take damage from them, and they also use the same sound effect as the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park. And then of course there's a whole host of robot enemies, some of which are properly tanky. Enemies with big health pools are nothing new to Gears of War, of course, but then in the Gears of old, those enemies were most often armed with boom shots, meaning they were very powerful and had to be deployed sparingly. These new tanky robots, however, have slightly less powerful armaments, meaning they can be, and indeed are, spammed onto the battlefield, drawing your fire and posing a real threat without immediately flattening you thanks to their numbers. And this is all wrapped up in this sweeping story which I found myself genuinely getting into. You need to find out where this new threat is coming from and stop it before it gets to Locust or Lambent levels of badness. Enjoying the campaign was perhaps the greatest surprise for me, as I thought I was done with the grunty, sincere stylings that have so characterised the franchise. So yeah, Gears of War 4 is really good, which is why the first act is, in my opinion, a real letdown.
Today, we are humbled by the presence of 2 generations of men and women who braved every danger.
See, Gears of War 4 opens with an emotional prologue acknowledging how much the brave soldiers of the coalition of governments have sacrificed for the human race. And these flashbacks get properly drilled into you because you then have to play snippets of them as different soldiers, each one of them presumably dead now.
I'll go flank him right!
I know this is effectively the video game equivalent of a previously on Lost moment, but to be honest, it's kind of tedious. I'm happy to be caught up by all means. I'm sure there are people playing Gears of War 4 who haven't played the original trilogy, but don't make me relive it just because you can. Unfortunately, after the prologue, Act 1 doesn't really do much to help. Following the prologue, you get into the main game and finally meet JD Phoenix and his buddies as they embark on a daring raid on a COG outpost. And because this is effectively the warm-up to the main heart of the story, this section is all very glib and light-hearted, and it's really colourful, which is a lovely contrast to the gloomy recap you just sat through. However, this section, simply put, outstays its welcome, carrying on long after you've got the message. Indeed, long after you've already absorbed absolutely everything the section has to teach you, twice.
More DR1s, take him out!
The opening section is populated exclusively by robot enemies, and they're interesting, right? They're a necessary evil because of course you can't raid a COG facility and start killing a bunch of humans because that would immediately rule you out of being the good guys. And also there aren't that many humans left, so further depleting the population is a bit of a no-no. The problem with these robot enemies is that they're boring, and you spend far too long fighting them. Now, I've played a lot of Gears of War, so I know you're rarely allowed to walk much more than 30 foot without having to kill a handful of something, but honestly, I started groaning audibly when I saw more drop pods raining from the sky.
EVDR1 activated.
And don't get me wrong, there are enjoyable moments in the opening act, but by the time the story really gets going and you finally say to yourself, alright, this is definitely a Gears of War game now, you're pretty much starting Act 3 of 5. Gears of War spends a lot of time setting itself up when it could have quite easily done it in half the time. It's an unnecessarily long preamble to the core experience you know is coming anyway. That bullet-riddled march through an area far from home and full of horrible enemies and gore and foul-smelling stuff and really grumpy soldiers. Most of Gears of War 4's campaign is great fun, you've just got to wade through the opening act in order to get to it, which is a bit of a shame, if you ask me. But anyway, hopefully you found these ramblings interesting. If you did, there are plenty of other videos from Eurogamer for you to check out, some of which ought to be on screen now if I've done my job properly. Anyway, if you want to watch some of those, that'd be great. If you would like to hit like on this video or hit the subscribe button, that would be lovely, but of course, it's up to you, no pressure at all. Either way, thank you very much for watching this far, and have a lovely day. Bye!